Hello. So today we shall look at the decline of Mughal Empire. See, Mughals have ruled India for a very long period from 1526 till 1857, when the last ruler of the Mughal Empire, of course the later Mughal Empire, Muhammad Shah Zafar, was imprisoned by the British at the Rangoon jail, which marked the ultimate decline of this vast empire. But now let us try and understand what are the reasons that has caused the decline of such a vast empire, which has caused huge transformation in every possible aspect, including religious, political, architectural, cultural, etc., etc. So many historians have expressed various opinions regarding the actual decline reasons for the decline of the Mughals. But here we have some of the most important reasons, which will be looking very broadly. So first thing is the Jagirdari crisis. So first thing is the Jagirdari crisis, which has many other implications like the political implication as well as the economic implications. And we also point out Aurangzeb's expansionist military campaigns, which were aimed at the Deccan province mostly, which also resulted in the decline of their empire. Then the most important and cited reason is the religious policy of Aurangzeb, who was a fanatic Sunni by nature. And fourthly, the weakening of its military might. So an empire which used to have a huge army in the initial days has now started losing its military might as well. And then no fresh technological advancements were made in the fields of agriculture, which has resulted in the decline of productivity. And whereas the tax rates were much higher, which has resulted in recurrent peasant revolts, and advancements were not made in military terms as well. Finally comes the foreign invasion, which has become a very imminent threat, which the Mughals could not abstract it. So we shall now look and see what all has happened uh, clearly from here. So first thing, what does the Jagirdari crisis? See, basically when we look at the Mughal administration, the lands were divided, which we generally call Jagirs or Mansabs, and a Jagirdar or Mansabdar was appointed. See, the system is entirely different from the Zamindari system which the British had brought in, because Jagirdari system, actually, it was a system where the Jagirdar, was not hereditary. The position of Jagirdar was not hereditary, whereas in the Jamindari system, there was a hereditary post. Of course, the duties were one and the same. So the Jagirdars were appointed by the Mughal emperors to oversee the tax collection. Just the duty of these Jagirdars was to collect the tax from the peasants living there and just send it back to the royal treasury. And they had two primary duties. Of course, this system was started by Akbar the Great. So these Jagirdars were given two prime responsibilities. First thing was the collection of land revenue. They used to collect the land revenue from the Jagir, and send it back to the you know royal treasury. It was divided into three parts basically. One was sent to the royal treasury, the other was taken for were taken by this very Jagirdar, and the third part was used by the Jagirdar to maintain a requisite number of army men as well as herdsmen, as asked by the king. Then the collected revenue The collected revenue, as I told you, was divided into three parts. So one for the personal expense of the Jagirdar, the second of the maintenance of an army, and the third it was sent to the royal treasury. See, but after 1707, that is the expansion of empire came to a standstill, and there's a crisis for new Jagirdar. See, what happened actually was that in the year 1707, after the death of Aurangzeb, military expansions were stopped. They came to a standstill, and the available land was only distributed amongst the nobles in the court. So what happened finally was, owing to the paucity of land, the lands that were available there had to be, divided only between the three faction of nobles. See, the nobles in the court got split into three factions, one being the Hindustani faction, second being Iranian faction, and the third being Turanian faction. So these three factions continuously quarreled among themselves and always wanted to have an upper hand as compared to the others, so that their status in the court could be more. So there was this continuous fight on one hand, and on the other hand, see, the actual problem came in a sense, no, as there was a paucity of land, the land revenue which came to the treasury was also less in number. So that was also a very you know economic backlog for these Mughal rulers. So as a result, the nobility in the Mughal court started to fight among themselves to garner a greater control over the Jagis. So paucity of land was evident, and these people were not in a position to gain their own Jagirs. So this had both political as well as economic instability in the court. So we have seen how it has led to political instability. Political instability arose because of this continuous conflict between these rulers. Economic instability because of the paucity of land, and the production was less. As a result, the revenue to the royal treasure was decreasing. So, owing to this, there was also corruption in the Mughal army maintained by the Jagirdars in the absence of a strong ruler. So, there was the absence of a strong ruler, and Jagirdars taken it for granted. They were not in a position to maintain the required horsemen and give them proper training, as there was no strong ruler to have check on them. So that was another reason. Then this made the nobility make use of the situation, having their say in the Mughal court. So this, as the ruler was very weak, this gave a very great hand for the nobility to perform and have established their say in the court. So this reason, this Jagirdari crisis, which was both political as well as economic in nature, it had played a very key role in in paving a way for the decline of the Mughals. So the expansionist policy which was followed by the erstwhile rulers did not progress here. So the rulers had to, depend on the limited land that they had. The paucity of land, that had resulted in the economic depreciation, as well as gave a very big hand for the nobility to, establish themselves more powerful in the royal court. So next most important reason is that of Aurangzeb's expansionist military campaigns. See, by the time Aurangzeb came to power, the whole of India, pan India, was under their control, and from times immemorial, from times of Akbar, followed by Shah Jahan, they were very much, thirsty towards this Deccan. They wanted to occupy this land below this Vindhya and Satpura mountains. So they were in a continuous quest for this land to be occupied. So unlike Aurangzeb, like his predecessor, was much concerned about the Deccan region, and V.S. Smith rightly points out that the Deccan was the grave of his reputation as well as his body. So this is aimed at, pointing the danger that they had in conquering the Deccan. This is correctly pointed out. You know it's a dagger towards Aurangzeb's reign. So what was his military? How is his military campaign responsible? Let us see. See, Aurangzeb was strict in his religion and was a staunch Sunni. And see, the Deccan kingdoms were primarily attacked time and again because of this religious fabric as well. the northern Muslim Mughals were Sunnis by nature, whereas the Deccan rulers, be it Bijapur, Golconda, Bidar, all these rulers were merely Shias. So that was the other reason why these people wanted to attack Deccan. So as they were part of Shia sect, they continuously wanted to wage wars against them. See, Aurangzeb to conquer this Deccan, he had to leave Delhi, and some historians said that he had to stay in Deccan nearly for some 25 years or so. So, after a very long drawn struggle, leaving the administration at center in peril, Aurangzeb stayed for some 25 years in Deccan and finally conquered Bijapur and Golconda in 1686 and 1687. So, and on his way, he also defeated Shambhaji, the son of Shivaji, and arrested and took his son. Sorry, this is not say this is actually Sahu, the king of the later ruler, that is the son of Shambhaji, and took him to Delhi as a captive. So after all these things, see, this was a major mistake committed by Aurangzeb as far as many historians are concerned, because after defeating Shambhaji, after killing him, he should have taken some other step, but nothing was taken by him. He left him and came as it is. So that was something which made them revive their glory again after his death. So however, the Marathas weren't fully crushed by the Mughals, and they soon revived and launched attack against Mughals under the leadership of Raja Ram and Tarabai after the death of Aurangzeb. So this revival provided obviously a greater blow after the death of Aurangzeb, and this has also challenged the growth of Mughals therewith. So this aggressive expansionist policy opted by Aurangzeb, which has on one hand broke the shackles of administration at the center, as well as made these futile attempts in conquering the south. So as Yadnath Sarkar finally concludes, the Spanish ulcer had ruined Napoleon. It was Deccan ulcer which ruined Aurangzeb. See, it not only ruined Aurangzeb, but it also has put a very hefty and mighty empire which has ruled the country for a longer time to its end. So this aggressive expansionist policy of Aurangzeb is also considered one of the main reasons for the decline of Mughals. Then the other most important reason, is the religious policy of Aurangzeb. See, Aurangzeb being very religious, he wasn't able to tolerate expansion of other religions except Islam. See, he was so religiously fanatic that he not only wanted other religions to be suppressed, but also wanted another Islamic sect, the Shia community, to be subdued, and it was to be, put at stake. So such religiously fanatic was Aurangzeb. So to fuel the spread of Islam and to propel compulsions into Islam, Aurangzeb reimposed the jizya tax, which was initially started by Muhammad bin Qasim and abolished temporarily by Akbar. It was reimposed on non-Muslims. So this is considered to be one of the most important mistakes committed by Aurangzeb, as this has created a Hindu-Muslim divide and led to communal conflicts in his kingdom. So this created an impression of non-tolerance towards Hindus by the Muslim rulers. The rulers, much before Aurangzeb, showed very religiously tolerant approach. They were very much tolerant towards the Rajputs, they were tolerant towards the Jats, they were tolerant towards other small rulers religiously as well as socially. But this person was entirely, in against all those policies. So backed by these various acts of temple destruction, removal of Hindus from government posts, restriction on Hindu educational institutions, he was so rigid that he could not tolerate Hindu officials being appointed in Muslim courts. When he occupied Golconda, there were two officials working in the court of the Golconda ruler. So one was Akana and the other was Madana. Both were slaughtered on the roads of Golconda, setting a precedent that no one hereafter should employ any Hindu ruler. So such fanatic this person was. So Aurangzeb's reversal of Akbar's religious policy of tolerance resulted in weakening of entire structure of Mughal Empire and led them into conflicts with many communities across the country. So this reversal of Akbar's policy by Aurangzeb. This reversal of Akbar's religious policy towards other religions has completely led the empire into a very communal dispute and chaos. So Aurangzeb had also to these expenses came generally at the cost of conflicts with various other rulers like the Jats, or Jats, it's Jats, Jats, Sikhs, Rajputs, as well as Marathas. So this has finally led to the decline of Mughal Empire. So the next most important reason after religious policy of Aurangzeb is the weakening of military might. See, basically, the Mughal state is termed as a war state. What does it mean? See, a war state meaning war state means the economy of the state is entirely dependent on wards. When wards keep increasing, when they go plunder some state, occupy the wealth from that state, and that indeed fueled their progress. So that is what a war state is. What happened after Aurangzeb was no bigger, no larger territorial expansions were carried out. So that was the main reason, and this lack of military campaigns has led to the loss of military discipline amongst the army crew. So this gave the army a sense of unpreparedness, and the discipline in the army was generally lost. Then, apart from this, there were hardly any military campaigns that were being carried out. This was on one hand, and on the other hand, the most important blow was that the Jagirdars, as there was no strong ruler to keep them under check, these Jagirdars evaded the the actual scheme behind Jagirdari system. The system actually intended to the system generally it was intended to intended the Jagirdar to maintain some requisite number of men, soldiers and horsemen, which in the absence of a very strong ruler was not maintained properly. This has also led to corruption in the army. Okay, and this made the army really lose its sheen which it had during the early rulers time. So this was one more reason for the decline. Then after weakening of this military might, we shall look into another important reason, that is no fresh technological advancements. See, basically these rulers they gave much importance to literature, but no technological advancements were made during their reign. See, these technological advancement in the fields of warcraft, that is military equipment, military techniques, its strategies were all not that advanced, and the agriculture was also not given due attention. I'll tell you what has happened. The How did agriculture become a reason? Yes, the agriculture, when we talk of agriculture during the Mughal tenure, no fresh technological advancements were made. Tax system was based on Todarmal's plot. So that is something which you might have studied in the economy part. But as far as agriculture is concerned, after Aurangzeb, no fresh advancements were made, which made the productivity of the land go down. And as the productivity went down, taxes were high. So this also, later on resulted in many peasant revolts that occurred. So this lack of advancement resulted in the low agricultural productivity. The tax rates were high and no exemptions were given. Jagirdars had to pay to the rulers, and in turn these Jagirdars used to oppress these peasants there. That was inevitable. Investment in these fields and field of research was also limited. This also put an end to the modern war ammunition, making the army use obsolete weaponry. So army, it was to use the very obsolete weaponry. And then this lack of technological advancement was also one of the reasons, considered to be one of the reasons, not that important but still one of the reasons, which has finally led to the decline of this kingdom. Then we have another most important thing is that the recurrent peasant revolts. I've told you why, what has happened. See, the amount of investment in the fields of agriculture was very much low, which resulted in a very less productivity. So that is what made these peasants very much annoyed. See, the lack of investment in the fields of agriculture made the agricultural produce productivity very less basically, and the high tax rates in the absence of productivity left the peasants in despair. They weren't able to pay such huge taxes to the rulers. Then the peasants also started to revolt against the ruler. So however, these revolts were put under check. They were put under check by Aurangzeb, but the later rulers who came to the throne were very much lavish in their lifestyle. They were driven by money and luxuries. They were not that interested administration, so they couldn't take any step to curtail these peasant revolts. These revolts question the integrity and commitment of the rulers toward their subjects, which is the most important reason for that matter. This has later on become a very much a debating topic these days as well. We shall look into the next most important reason now, that is the foreign invasions. See, from times immemorial, India was a country, say, which had sheltered many people, right from Aryans, Alexander, to the Mughals, as well as the British. They were all the foreign invaders. But these invasions during the Mughal period by the Afghans questioned the military might of the Mughals. What happened was continuously Afghans kept on invading India. So rulers like Babar, Humayun, till Aurangzeb were able to put them under check. They defeated them. They did not let these people plunder their kingdom. Whereas after Aurangzeb, the rulers were very much incompetent and were unable to check these invasions. So the invasion of Nadir Shah in 1738 completely shackled the roots of Mughal Empire in India. His loot of Peacock Throne and Kohinoor sent clear signals that the knell of Mughal Empire had already been blown. So as the country was put open, so foreigners are coming and going. It was believed by the external world that the country is now put open. Anybody can come and loot the the kingdom there and exploit the resources there. So concluding, the climax to the this empire came in the year 1803 when Delhi was captured by the British. The rank of emperor was reduced to a mere pensioner. This was the Shah Alam's period. Generally, Shah Alam was put as a pensioner later on. Finally, in the year 1858, the last ruler Bahadur Shah Zafar was detained and sent to Rangoon as a prisoner during the final call to the Mughal Empire. So, therefore, the Mughal Empire, which ruled for nearly 300 years and contributed heavily for the unification of the country and the heritage, slowly sank beyond horizons, and that is how this country has lost its sheen, its beauty. So, this is how the decline of Mughals have started. So this concludes our discussion on the topic, the decline of Mughals. So do like, comment if you have any queries or questions, or if you wish to make any updates, do message, do comment, so that it would be beneficial for me to come with a better updates next time. Thank you.